In 2000, African heads of state and government agreed on the need to promote peace, security, and stability as a prerequisite for the implementation of the continent's development and integration agenda. The promotion of peace and security is one of the key objectives of the African Union as enshrined in its constitutive act. The Peace and Security Department of the Commission of the AU was established to provide the necessary support to efforts aimed at promoting peace, security, and stability on the continent. The department comprises of the following 5 divisions: Conflict Prevention and Early Warning Division, Crisis Management and Post-Conflict Reconstruction Division, Peace Support Operations Division, Peace and Security Council Secretariat, and Defense and Security Division.
We are now working to respond to a directive from our leaders that is silencing the guns by 2020.
The Defense and Security Division is one of the divisions within the Peace and Security Department. The division is mandated to look at and address issues of security environment in Africa through the implementation of the Common African Defense and Security Policy that was adopted in 2004.
The Division of Defense and Security is developing programs, instruments, and strategies to address issues of small arms and light weapons, counter-terrorism, weapons of mass destruction, non-proliferation, security sector reform, disarmament, demobilization, and reintegration, landmines, mine action, the operationalization of the African Union mechanism on police cooperation. The division is also trying to sensitize and promote international and regional instruments in the area of disarmament, such as Arms Trade Treaty, the Chemical Weapon Convention, the Biological Weapon Convention, and to help member states understand the benefits of ratifying those conventions. The Commission continues to assist AU member states in the fight against the illicit proliferation, circulation, and trafficking of illicit small arms and light weapons. African Union member states have made significant progress over the years in addressing the scourge of small arms and light weapons. The African Common Position on the Illicit Proliferation, Circulation, and Trafficking of Small Arms and Light Weapons, also known as the Bamako Declaration, which was adopted by the Council of Ministers of the OAU in December 2000, remains the main policy document for the Commission. In this declaration, member states undertook to identify, seize, and destroy illicit weapons. The declaration also provides for the establishment of measures to control the circulation, transfer, and use of small arms and light weapons.
The illicit proliferation, circulation, and trafficking of small arms and light weapons have devastating and wide-reaching consequences. They facilitate a range of human rights violation and international human rights law violation as well. This includes attacks against peacekeepers, humanitarian aid workers, and of course, innocent civilians. Outside the immediate context of conflict, they contribute to aggravating intercommunal strife and violent competition over natural resources. It, of course, also contribute to a range of criminal activities.
The AU, with the support of the European Union, embarked on a 3-year project on the fight against illicit firearms in Africa. The project is implemented by the Regional Center on Small Arms, RECSA. The project seeks to strengthen relevant institutional and civil society actors in member states, including the African Regional Police Chief Organization, RPCOS, and law enforcement agencies through enhanced cooperation, information exchange, implementing capacity within and among countries.
The African Union works within the framework of a number of instruments that have been developed by the African Union and by the international community as a whole. This includes, of course, the United Nations Programme of Action on Small Arms and Light Weapons, and most importantly, the Arms Trade Treaty, which regulates international trades in small arms and light weapons, in addition to other categories of conventional weapons. In this regard, the African Union assists member states in ratifying and domesticating these instruments and provides technical and legislative, as well as capacity building support to the member states in areas of training. This includes physical security and stockpile management, arms marking and registration, and record keeping.
Disarmament, demobilization, and reintegration processes are part of the fundamental preconditions for peace, stability, and human security and human development in emerging post-conflict societies in Africa. Over the past few decades, a significant number of African countries, drawn from all of the AU regions, have undertaken some form of disarmament, demobilization, and reintegration process. This evolution is due to the fact that effective DDR is a crucial element of stabilization and recovery interventions. As such, DDR processes are part of the fundamental preconditions for peace, stability, human security, and human development in emerging post-conflict societies.
The African Union Program on Disarmament, Mobilization, and Reintegration, which is DDR, is a program that assists member states to be able to deal with armed groups, especially after a conflict, in post-conflict situations. You know, whether it is the freedom fighters or rebel groups, when the conflict is over, those groups need to be disarmed, they need to be demobilized, and they need to go back into civil society. And that process is what we call a disarmament, demobilization, and reintegration. It is very important because if groups that were fighting continue to remain in their former formations and groups and continue to have arms, they will continue to destabilize society. And if a country is in a post-conflict situation and there is a new national security force or national defense force, then there is no need for those groups to continue to remain in armed formations. So DDR is very important.
The main rationale for AU engagement in DDR is to support peace processes and enhance security in its member states so that post-conflict recovery can begin. DDR is considered a vital component of peace building, acting as a bridge between immediate security and long-term recovery priorities in the transition from war to peace. In countries and sub-regions emerging from violent conflict and/or serious political and social crisis, a successful DDR program helps create a climate of confidence and security, paving the way for a range of peace-building and recovery activities. In January 2009, the Defense and Security Division started a Security Sector Reform (SSR) program in fulfillment of a 2008 Assembly decision. The aim of the AU-SSR program is to assist member states to formulate and reorient the policy, structures, and capacities of institutions and groups engaged in the security sector in order to make them more effective, efficient, and responsive to democratic control and to the security and justice needs of the people.
The aim of the African Union Security Sector Reform Program is to assist member states to make their security sector to be more efficient, more effective, and also to be able to respond to the security needs of citizens and of the state, and to be more prepared, to be more well-equipped, and also to be able to respond to regional and international security requirements, for example, in peace missions, for the AU peace support operations, and also for the United Nations. The main mechanism is the African Union Policy Framework for Security Sector Reform, which was adopted by the Assembly in January 2013. There are also a number of international guidance mechanisms. We use all those regional, international, and our own guidance notes that we have made.
UNOAU has a 10-year mandate to support the African Union, and we work in mainly two areas. That is on strategic and policy development, and then on the more tactical operational support side. We have 22 planners, and we support all of the areas that the United Nations works in. So, for example, mine action, peace and security, elections, all of the different areas. Landmines have been a significant problem throughout the world, especially in Asia and Africa, for over 30 years now. There has been a ban on landmines production and use since 1997, but we still have problems in many countries around the world, especially Africa. There's been a lot of work done and a lot has been achieved over the years on landmines and on exploded ordnance. However, we still have significant problems, especially in countries with ongoing wars such as Syria, Libya, and other countries around the world.
How do we empower young people in Africa that their voices are heard, they don't join these issues? How do we give them voice? How do we make them included? Government cannot employ the numbers of people leaving the high schools and leaving the universities. So if you don't give people a sense of hope in the future, where will they get their sense of hope? So for Africa, violent extremism is a manifestation of a deep-seated structural problem of development in the continent, and we need to address this development.
The security environment in Africa is driven by conventional challenges such as international conflict, terrorism, organized crime, insurgency, and to some extent weak security institutions in some member states, and the existing of enormous armed groups in the continent, whether they're involved in conflicts or are existing in post-conflict environment that threats state security and civilian.
We have developed critical tools when it comes to the main threat on the continent as we speak, that is terrorism. So we are also creating new institutions that will serve the objective.
The main challenges that's facing the Commission in terms of combating terrorism is the changing nature of terrorism and its association with transnational organized crime, such as human trafficking, drug trafficking, arms trafficking, and money laundering. Also, another challenge that is facing the Commission is the enormous borders that we have in the continent, that it was not easy to control in some cases. So these are basically the main challenges that is facing the Commission in terms of implementing and assisting member states. Obviously, the division will continue its effort to work with member states and international partners to develop the necessary programs, instruments to assist member states in their effort to prevent and combat terrorism.
Peace and security needs a holistic approach, and we are working for that in service for our citizens in the continent.